So welcome everyone. We are excited to have you here for Building Tampa's Equitable Tomorrow. You know that affordable housing is a major priority for the mayor, and we wanted to take this evening to share what she has planned for the future, where we are, and how you can get involved. So we are glad to have you here. In a few minutes, we're going to be sending you to breakout rooms so that you can introduce yourself to others in the room. Ebony, next slide. Oh. So I hope that you all can see the agenda. We have an exciting evening planned for you. We originally thought that this event, we were planning for it to be in person, and we were going to have a lot of drinks and food and a great time just meeting and greeting each other and learning about the mayor's initiative. We had to change it to a virtual event, and we tried to keep it just as exciting. So we will start like any other event with a kickoff, connections and collaborations. Then the mayor will join us and give a welcome and her views. We will then go into reviewing the affordable housing report that was completed by the advisory committee. From that, we will move to the Tampa Chamber's workforce and housing report, which really connects well with the Mayor's Affordable Advisory Report. Then we're going to show you an example of a collaboration that has already happened that is something that everyone can do, because affordable housing is not just a city issue, it's not just a poor people issue, it's an everyone issue. It ties into education, to healthcare, to security, to stability. So because of that, we want to show you how you can get involved, and that's what this evening is really about. Once we conclude with that, we'll also have a presentation from the school board just talking about the importance to our kids and our community. And then we'll also go into the mayor's workforce development report. Following that, we will open up for questions and answers. As we are going along, please feel free to type your questions into the chat. That way you don't forget them. So as the speakers are talking and you think of something, just go ahead and type it in the chat. And when we get to the question and answer portion, all of the speakers will be here, and we will allow those questions to be asked and answered. Following that, we're going to go into breakout rooms where you can learn more about how you can collaborate and be a part of the affordable housing journey. So with that, we're going to move to the next slide. And this is just to tell you, as you're going to see something come up on your screen and it's going to say join, please click on that. You will then be moved into a breakout room. And this is where we want you to spend 2 to 3 minutes introducing yourself to others in the room. Get to know someone that you don't already know. Say hello to folks that you may not have seen because of COVID in a while. Just encourage you to participate and make new connections and collaborate. And then we'll come back and we will move on with the agenda. So have fun, and we'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so we are back, and we are joined by our wonderful mayor, and I am going to turn it over to her, and she is going to bring you greetings and talk about affordable housing.
All right, thank you all very much. Good evening and welcome to Developing Tampa. This is our first virtual conference on housing, and I think I speak for the group when I say we all wish we were where Leonard was at, on the beach there, getting a tan. But you know, our city is, as we all know, despite this current pandemic that we're in, is really a city on the rise. But so often, not everyone has that same opportunity to access housing that all of our residents can afford. And that's why we are all here this evening. As Tampa continues to grow and thrive, we must ensure that we have equitable prosperity for all of our residents. It's critically important. We're a city that was founded on our diversity, and that's something that we celebrate on a regular basis, and it's our diversity that makes us one of the greatest cities in the nation. As newcomers carved out a living, a few homes in our city became a neighborhood, and as neighborhoods developed, so did the businesses around those neighborhoods. And now Tampa is full of unique communities, all across our wonderful city. And as the mayor, I want each of these communities to be able to flourish on their own. And that's why when I looked at those areas, those strategic areas that I was going to focus on, I landed on those three topics that I feel are critically important to us moving forward. That's transportation, workforce development, and housing affordability. And so I thank each and every one of you for not only being here today, but for your interest in housing affordability and the significance of that here in our community. A large portion of a low and moderate income family's wages are spent on those rising monthly rents. And I believe it's, Vanessa, is it 33%?
30%.
30% of an individual's wage is supposed to go towards housing. And we know we've all surpassed, in so many areas, surpassed that percentage. And quite often, individuals are working in some cases just to make that mortgage payment or that rent. And so we want to make sure that we make the American dream of home ownership available to everyone in our community. And so we need to, to make sure that we're addressing all of these issues that are a threat to housing affordability and really cause housing insecurity in so many cases. We don't want to have our single moms that have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put a roof over their kids' heads, or the young couples that have to work, tirelessly to afford that mortgage, or to have the elderly priced out of the neighborhoods that they raise their families in. And so we all have to work together to ensure that those things don't happen. And we're not in this alone. There are cities across the United States that are grappling with these same issues. I'm a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and this is a topic in every city nationwide. And so it's something that we want to address, and we want to address it now so that, again, all of our residents have the opportunity to realize that American dream. So this is why the Housing and Community Development Division has invited you to this conference today, for that very reason. Through our collective efforts, we can change outcomes in our community. And at the start of this pandemic, we all learned a great deal about what is possible. We have the new normal. We've reimagined so many things in our daily lives. And so this is another area that we need to bring that innovation, to bring that brain trust into, so that we can solve these problems in our own backyards. So it's time to take our newfound superpower and use it to design systems by which the dream of home ownership comes back within the reach of families throughout our community, in every corner of our community. So I want you guys to enjoy this interactive event today. Please participate. Give us your thoughts, your ideas, your responses. And our theme this evening is Be My Neighbor. So we are doing this virtually, but we want you all to embrace that theme and understand that we can still come together even in these virtual moments here, the Zoom time, as I call it. But I'm encouraging everyone to ask questions and to view examples of some of the things, innovative approaches that developers have taken, and learn about the housing counseling agencies, learn how you can be part of transforming Tampa's tomorrow. Right now we have an opportunity to build a city that is every Tampanian's dream and someplace that they will be proud to call home. And by working together, I have absolutely no doubt that we can make that vision a reality. So I thank you all again for attending today. I'm looking forward to the partnerships, and I'm looking forward to the innovative ideas that come out of this virtual meeting today. And I thank everyone that played a part in not only developing this seminar, this virtual meeting today, but also those individuals that worked on one of our task force plans that I know Carol Post is going to review right now, and that was our affordable housing affordability task force plan that we're using as a roadmap to really push this issue towards fruition. So thank you all very, very much, and I hope you have a wonderful meeting, and I hope everybody stays dry. Where Leonard's at, it looks like there's not a cloud in the sky, but we've got some serious thunderstorms out there. So you guys have a wonderful meeting. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
You are most welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
So here where we are, we can hear the thunder roaring. I hope that it doesn't interfere with our event, so we're going to move on. Next, we're going to hear from Carol Post. She is the new Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. And as we know, in Tampa, there is a lot of development going on and a lot of economic opportunity. And so she is going to walk us through the city's housing affordability report and recommendations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol.
Terrific, thank you very much. Welcome everyone, and thank you for having me be able to participate today. And it's an honor to follow Mayor Castor, and it's an honor to support her vision for housing affordability as well. So I will take just a short moment to orient folks as to what the highlights of the housing affordability report represent and how they can form, as the mayor alluded to, a roadmap for our path forward. I do want to just give a short moment to recognize how this report came about. This was an effort that was undertaken at the mayor's direction. As you can see, there were a number of priority strategic areas in focus, housing affordability being the fourth of them. That next slide is fine.
There we go.
And we'll back up one, if you don't mind, and then I'll give you the slide forward sign. So just the background there, as you can see, the 5 strategic priority areas in the upper right corner that represent the priority focus. Housing affordability is a very important matter to the mayor and to the administration. And as such, as with the other strategic priorities, there was a team of experts, advocates, and stakeholders assembled in late summer and through the fall that convened to bring about to assess our current state in housing affordability and to provide a set of tactical and strategic recommendations. And that's what I'll provide an overview for. I do want to recognize the report itself was released in February. It is available on our website, as are all of these reports, as are also the meeting agendas, the meeting minutes, and other associated information. So if I do invite folks who want to learn more of the details, see each of the tactical recommendations. It is all available there for review. Today, I'll just cover it at high level. And I'd like to recognize the co-chairs of that group, Tyler Hudson, Bishop Dr. Thomas Scott, and Vamitra Salter-Liggins, who helped facilitate that. I also, just in seeing who's come up online here at our virtual forum, we've got a number of the members of that advisory team participating in today's program. Ernest Coney is with us, Antoinette Triplett Hall, Harry Hedges, Leroy Moore, Brett Azzarelli, and Deborah Reyes. Those are 6 of about 19 of our advisory team members who really contributed, and I'd like to thank them for that. So now let us go to the next slide, and I will hightail it through the real highlights of the program and the recommendation report. It boiled down to 3 key components. The first around housing supply and programs, no surprise there. The second around policy and alignment and how that can inform our long-term strategies. And the third was around the community outreach and engagement component. So next slide, I'll just talk briefly about housing supply. At the end of the day, we just need more housing. We need more housing, as Vanessa alluded to, across every aspect of our community, every socioeconomic sector, every financial sector. They all, there is a need to have appropriate, safe, secure housing across such a wide spectrum. And what the team did is they, in fact, challenged themselves and now have challenged the city to have a set of housing and preservation targets. And so again, at a very high level, just articulating here that the targets we will be seeking to achieve per this recommendation report start with accelerating the addition of housing units by adding 10,000 additional housing units that meet the affordability or workforce standards by 2027. And in addition and companion to that is restoring and preserving at least 100 existing housing units annually. That's a program that's already, both of these are in fact already underway, but these will be challenges for us to achieve and to really advance the ball on new affordable housing units and preserving the existing ones. One of the key aspects of doing this, there were a lot of targeted ways to achieve these goals. I want to just speak briefly about one that we think is a real game changer. Next slide, please. And this is the formation of a community land trust. Many of you are probably very familiar with community land trusts. Some may not be as much. So just to share the notion of a community land trust, this is a tool that is established in many jurisdictions. It's demonstrated success in how a jurisdiction can manage and sustain its real estate assets to achieve its affordability goals. Now there's many models for a community land trust, and currently the City of Tampa is working right now on developing the model that is most appropriate for our needs. But let me just share it in a nutshell. What you can see from this visual representation on the left side, the true nature of a community land trust and why it's so beneficial is that the owner of the home is really only owning the home, the building, the structure. That's owned by the individual or family, and because they're paying only for the structure and not the underlying land, it makes the purchase of the building much, much more affordable. Now the land then is owned by the community land trust itself, which is a legal entity and is governed typically by a board or chair group, a group that is representative of the community. As such, again, Tampa is formulating our community land trust now. And then the governance beyond that is that typically the conveyance is in a lease form, but it's a long-term lease form, and it does enable the homeowner to enjoy the full benefits of home ownership, including appreciation at the time they convey the land, but that resale is typically governed by a formula that's set forth by the CLT, so that the real benefit is that the property remains affordable over the long-term duration. And that's been, I think, one of the challenges we discovered and this advisory team discovered is that as much as we have advanced affordable housing and the conveyance of properties through a lot of different creative programs, as a neighborhood starts to rise in its socioeconomic standards, the home no longer stays affordable. So the CLT is really an incredible tool at achieving sustainable long-term affordability. So without going too much further into the details of that chapter, you see we have a great deal of challenges ahead of us, but we're exploring these new creative tools to help achieve our goals. Next slide is the second of the 3 chapters. This is around policy and alignment. And again, we're at a very high level for today's presentation, but the idea is within the recommendations, there are numerous recommendations in there concerning tactical and strategic approaches, and many of them concern the code and the zoning recommendations, which for you builders, developers, and the like know that meeting code compliance often drives the cost of a development or a home up and therefore pushes it out of affordability. So many of the items in this list concern refining and rethinking some of our code sections, ranging from the incentive plans, which frankly we have today but have not been particularly compelling, and also just other ways to tactically reduce the build costs. For example, parking requirements really can drive up the cost when they may no longer necessarily be necessarily associated with the need for that for a particular neighborhood or a dense development. And then the idea of just continuing to evaluate other creative ideas that have proved very beneficial in other jurisdictions will be part of that policy and alignment chapter. And then the third chapter, next slide, is probably the most important, which is at the end of the day, this is all about people and those that we serve. So there's an entire chapter in the recommendations report detailing the efforts and activity that we will take to ensure that the community and the stakeholders are kept informed and are continuously part of the inclusiveness of this program and the programs that we undertake. A lot of this also is about just simplifying some of our processes. We have incredible programs under Vanessa and her team that apply and provide great benefits, but we can never do too much to make sure that members of the community are aware of the programs and can easily avail themselves of those programs. And then the last piece is really just trying to ensure that sometimes it's not just about the home itself, but about wraparound services and other things, even just about how does a new homeowner properly maintain their home, and then others that struggle with title services and the legal ramifications of home ownership. So all of these things are tied in to helping make home ownership a real promise for everyone across our community. So we have a great deal of work ahead of us, but we have a roadmap as is presented by this advisory team in its report. And we have the support and the influence of those individuals. More importantly, and as important is each of you and your organizations. We're thrilled to have you participate today and hope that you'll be able to help us drive our progress through the execution of this plan. So again, thank you for your time very much, and appreciate the opportunity to share that information with you. I'll turn it back over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
So as we put that report together, at the same time, great minds thinking alike, the Tampa Bay Chamber was working on their workforce housing report. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Rolick, who is the Tampa Bay Chamber President and CEO, who's going to talk about their report and the synergy between the two.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. Next time I need to talk to somebody about being the person to follow Carol Post. Before I start, I do want to thank the mayor and thank our whole administration for the work you all are doing. Looking at affordable housing, it's not an easy issue, but it's an important issue. So I'm just glad you all are focusing on this. I am Bob Rolick. I'm the president and CEO at the Tampa Bay Chamber, and a lot of our members are on this Zoom meeting who help us in all that we do, particularly helping within the Workforce Housing Caucus. Our mission is to serve our members and enhance our community by building business success. And we do that through our 10-year vision plan, which has 3 pillars: to be a hub for business, catalyst for change, and an inclusive organization. The Vision 2026 plan discusses our civic will and capacity to address economically crucial community issues decisively and thoughtfully with fact-based solutions. As a catalytic leader, we have implemented a research-based model for decisions that we make and for how we work to impact the community for positive change. Last year, the board of directors approved forming a workforce housing caucus, which is a study group within the chamber. Their purpose was to define workforce housing, research opportunities to understand what the workforce housing needs are in Hillsborough County, and identify clear action items that the chamber could engage in to advocate for affordable housing in our community. And on the next slide, you can see how we started to do that. Throughout 2019, the caucus met with many different stakeholders and organizations to get a better understanding of the barriers and the opportunities for workforce housing. We learned that there's no universal definition for what workforce housing is. So we had defined it as workforce housing as 80, 100, 120% of the Hillsborough County area median income, which would be an annual compensation range between a little over $37,500 to just over $56,200. Employees from a wide variety of industries fit into that demographic. And we identify construction, retail, the service industry, firefighters, police, military members, teachers, healthcare professionals, and our vital young professionals. So basically everyone who's being hit the hardest by what's going on with the pandemic in the community. And looking at the next slide, you can see in the Tampa Bay market, in Hillsborough County, as Carol mentioned, there is a true deficit in the available inventory of workforce housing. Several factors impact this, but our research indicated that this is due to zoning barriers and lack of incentives for the construction industry, all which can be influenced and we can have an impact on to lower and eliminate those barriers. While we are exploring new construction opportunities that include properties targeted at the workforce housing demographic, we do realize that this alone is not going to solve the problem. There must be an emphasis on preserving and rehabilitating older rental housing properties as well. It's a multi-pronged solution. It's not going to be a one solution will fix this complicated problem. And going on to the next slide, you can see that our focus at the Tampa Bay Chamber, the number one concern we have from our members is the difficulty they face in building sustainable talent pipelines. I mentioned to somebody earlier, back in the 80s when I was recruiting businesses in the old Committee of 100, we were having to do commuting maps for businesses. We would say, here's where your business could locate, and they would give us the different wage brackets, and we had to literally go to housing markets and time what the commute time was for them to be comfortable that they would get the workforce they needed at all levels. As a business membership organization, we recognize that the impact for workforce housing hits the entire community, hits all businesses, and our ability to attract and retain top talent. We want to keep the talent that's here, but we want this to be a market that good skilled labor comes to, and it's going to take addressing the whole picture, not just here's a job, but where can they live? Is it a community they want to be part of, and how can they become part of the community they're in? Our chamber is committed to partnering with our community stakeholders, talking about local government, non-partner organizations, and we have a memorandum of understanding agreement with 10 other organizations in the community. I saw Ann Kulik here from the West Shore Alliance. They're one of the organizations we're working with. And we want to work with developers to solve this critical issue for the long-term sustainable viability of our market. We're proud to be a part of an event like this. And again, we just thank the mayor for being willing to do something like this to bring the community together to address this issue. It's a tough one, but it's important that we do it. So thank you all for listening to our comments.
And thank you, Bob. That was a perfect segue into the next presentation that we will now have, which is a development partnership between Habitat for Humanity and Essentia. So I'm going to let Ebony go ahead and start that video. And this is a partnership which shows that you don't have to necessarily be a affordable housing developer.
We bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to break the cycle of poverty through affordable housing. So that's, in a nutshell, what we do. But Habitat Hillsborough has a home building program, a new construction program. We also have a home preservation program for low-income families that need some basic repair on the exterior of their homes, maybe from code violations, that kind of thing. We do that work so that it also keeps people in their homes rather than getting displaced. And then we also run 3 thrift stores across Hillsborough County. They're called our Habitat Restores. And so that helps to fund our mission as well. City of Tampa, you guys have been great. So I work a lot with Vanessa Cleary in the Affordable Housing Department. And we work really, we respond to RFPs for affordable housing grants through HUD, that flows back through the local jurisdictions. And so we did that. We're almost done actually with a partnership that it was in response to a grant where we built 10 homes, and the CDC of Tampa, they built 10 homes, and then a for-profit developer built like 70 homes, and they were all on different city lots scattered throughout East Tampa. And so we are just about finished with that project. AEG approached Habitat really via LinkedIn. Steve reached out to our chief development officer and said, we really want to give back. First of all, that's always impressive, because the people are thinking about their community. And so we had a meeting, and the idea was that ADG wanted to come together with their partners and fund an entire house, which is not, we don't get a pitch from someone like that. Usually it's us trying to sell them, right? And he was just amazing. And we said, well, we could make that work. So it was the first time we actually partnered with another builder, where they were coming to the table and saying, we want to bring volunteers, but we want to bring our subs. We want to partner with our subs, and they will bring their expertise and gifts in kind, materials or whatever. So that was an interesting piece because, of course, Habitat for Humanity, we want to make sure that we're fair. And we're like, these are the specs for our homes, because we don't build like specialty build, and we want to make sure that we're being fair to all of the home buyers that we serve. So there were certain specs that we go by to do that. In doing that, we worked with these different subs, and we finally came up with a product. And things that weren't, that maybe not work, then okay, Habitat would use this traditional sub. But we had, concrete people coming out and donating concrete and the labor. And then ADG, their company came out and they helped build the home alongside the homeowner and other volunteers. So it was amazing that they came with such heart. It was not uncommon for us to go out on the site, and the homeowner, would be there, and there's Steve and some crew in their hard hats, and they're building. So a lot of times, people might do one or the other. They'll bring volunteers, or they'll bring sponsorship, something like that. And they brought the whole ball of wax. And so it was pretty amazing. So I've been very impressed with Steve and his organization. They're the real deal.
Through that partnership, like Tina said, they brought materials and labor, financial support. They got their whole team along with their partners involved to build an affordable home. And it's something that, if you're a small company, you could maybe lend your expertise. If you're a larger company, you may be able to donate labor, materials, do everything like Steve did. There are just a number of different ways to get involved. And we're going to move on to Steve, who's going to talk about what that partnership meant for him and why he did it.
I work with Essential Development Group. I have one business partner in Sarasota. We are a developer of high-rise luxury condominiums. Primary market has been Sarasota, although within the last several years we have developed a very nice project in the Tampa area called Garage. So we have been for a very long time very passionate about Habitat's mission, especially in the Tampa area, and we had always wanted to take advantage of an opportunity in developing a condominium to leverage our group to assist with the affordable housing industry as well, because that's not our typical business, but we certainly wanted to assist. And I connected with the folks at Habitat several years ago, and we were able to put a very successful program together on one home, and we hope to replicate that. I reached out to Habitat with a rather unique proposition that I don't think they had experienced before. You know, we're as a developer, I hire the general contractor, but there are a plethora of subcontractors that work for the GC that all have the capability of performing exactly what Habitat does day in and day out. So my proposal to Habitat was that we would donate a home, and we would build as much of it as we could on our own and supplement the difference with cash to cover the full expense. And we were able to donate in the way of labor and materials more than half the value of the first home build project in Uptown. And we covered the difference, and I think that's kicked off a great community that Habitat has created in the Uptown area. Yes, on multiple occasions we did get to meet with and work with the homeowner. I recruited not only the staff from my company, but the general contractor, my sales team. I had probably 30 different people from our organization that assisted on several of the volunteer days, all of which we were there with the homeowner. So yes, we did get to interact with the homeowner, and it was a great experience. When we don't operate in the affordable housing sector, really this is our opportunity to give back. And you know, many of a good bit of the labor that works on our projects fall into this category, and we're not able to serve them. And I think this was a great opportunity for us to try to demonstrate that we are capable of doing that, and we would like to do that more. And I would challenge other developers and builders in the region to step up and do the same. When you have access to multiple trades that you can leverage to assist in a build like this, that for them is relatively simple. It's a very, very cost-effective way to further the efforts of affordable housing. I'd just like to say, you know, that I've really enjoyed getting to know the folks at Habitat. Tina and her team are fantastic, and we can't wait to have another opportunity to do one more.
So just want to remind everyone to put your questions in the chat so that when we get to the question and answer portion, we can go through those quickly. As Steve was saying, there are lots of opportunities to get involved, and sometimes people don't because they haven't been asked. He was one of those few that reached out and looked for an opportunity. So he's thrown down the gauntlet, and we are asking all of you to pick it up. And so now we're going to hear from Tamara Schamberger, and she is with she is one of our school board members for Hillsborough County. And she's just going to talk about the effect of affordable housing on our community.
As you know, our teachers are woefully underpaid. That's not a surprise to anyone, right? And so we want to make sure that our teachers have an affordable place to live, and we want to eliminate any issues that they may have outside of the classroom, because we know that that will translate to how effective they are in the classroom. And we certainly don't want our teachers to have to struggle with a decent place to sleep at night for their families. We want them to come into our classrooms refreshed and ready to go and able to effectively teach our kids. And so affordable housing is very important to the education workforce. Recruiting of teachers is hard in itself these days. Education is just not the most attractive career for most folks. And so when we want to attract the best and the brightest teachers here in Hillsborough, it's not only the pay, but it's also the living conditions that they have here in Hillsborough. And so we want to be able to make sure that our teachers will have a nice place to stay for their families and a comfortable place to stay that they can afford without all the financial pressures on them. And so that's a big part of recruiting teachers. These are folks that just live in the community, just like the rest of us. And so here in Hillsborough County School District 5, School Board Member District 5, it's the most marginalized and disenfranchised communities in Hillsborough County. And so when I'm out in the community, which I live in as well, I see these teachers all the time. And we talk about their lack of access to affordable housing almost more than we talk about the issues in the classroom. The lack of access to affordable housing is impacting everyone, but it's really impacting the teachers who want to live in the neighborhoods that they serve in. They want to be role models in these neighborhoods, but they're having a really hard time finding housing that's affordable and that's decent for them based on their career. It has a direct correlation. I say it all the time. We cannot have a stable education system unless we have a stable community. We have to make sure that our families can sit still and have a stable place to live. Far too often, our families are moving every 2 or 3 months because maybe they're getting evicted, they can't afford the rent, and they're just moving from location to location. And when they move, the kids must move schools as well. And it really interrupts drastically the education process. And so until we can stabilize our communities, we'll never be able to stabilize education and really break some of these generational cycles that we perpetually have dealt with. We have a large, unfortunate population of homeless students, students that are living in cars, some that are living in storage units, some that don't have anywhere to live. And so we certainly have great compassion for these students, but it's an issue that's almost beyond our control. And it's why we really need assistance from our mayor and the city and all of the partners to really help us stabilize this. You know, our primary goal is education. We do understand we have to help overcome some barriers to make sure we can educate the kids, but the large population of students who just have nowhere to stay, who we honestly sometimes don't even know where they are, is really becoming an issue in getting them educated. In my mind, affordable housing looks like a nice place, a safe place where our families can live and afford out of a reasonable amount of their income, a place that they can call home, a place where they can invest, and not only in their home, but invest back into the community so we can really start shifting these communities back to a positive place. We really need places where family can take root again. We just don't have that in District 5, unfortunately. But we always talk about the rents that are just going out of the roof right now, and the price of housing just being skyrocketed that no one can really afford. I hope that the City of Tampa will really think about that and make houses financially affordable for our families, but not only financially affordable, just a nice, safe dwelling place for our families and especially our students. We have to really control that. If we're not going to increase the incomes of folks, we certainly have to really control how much rents are and how much the value of these houses are. Families that I am used to living around are just being pushed out of these communities. We need families to stay into these communities, to strengthen these communities. And the only way they can do it is if they can't afford it. So we want economic empowerment. We want them to make more income. But we need the city to hold our hand and partner with us and give our families safe and decent, affordable housing to live in.
So we've talked about the importance of affordable housing. We've talked about partnerships to make housing affordable, but one of the keys to housing being affordable is the workforce. And so now what we're going to do is introduce Osea Wynn, who is going to talk about the mayor's workforce development report and the direction that the city will be taking in partnership with the community to address the workforce development issues in Tampa.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today. So Tamara talked about the stabilizing the community and how important that is for the education system. Well, stabilizing the community is important because it interlinks all of the mayor's initiatives together. Transportation, development services, and of course, housing and affordability. But in order to stabilize the community, it's important that we realize that those who are unemployed or underemployed cannot afford housing. So oftentimes we do see that they're migrating or moving from place to place to find that job. That uproots the family, that uproots the community. So the mayor had the vision and the foresight to see that, okay, we really need to focus on workforce development because that's a key component in our community. We had the workforce advisory team. The chairs of the advisory team were Dr. Clark from Hillsborough Community College, as well as Tim Marks from Metropolitan Ministries. And the team in and of itself was comprised of leaders from the K through 12 educational system, labor organizations, major employers, nonprofits, economic development agencies. Next slide, please. And as everyone met, there were collaboration and a determination on what all of these stakeholders felt were some of the general findings. So to summarize the general findings, they found that, we need a collaboration. We need a way to manage the talent pipeline of the numerous initiatives that so many of the organizations are actually performing. And this will be important so that there's no duplication of resources, no duplication of initiatives. And then it was important that once we all met and everyone developed their ideas, that those needs were actually prioritized. So the intent was to look at what are those cradle to grave initiatives that will help us develop the workforce. What are the things we need to consider that will remove the barriers, the wraparound services that will allow those who need the apprenticeship training or educational training to partake in those activities so that they are able to get the jobs that will lead, or the training that will lead to gainful employment. On the next slide, we will talk about the development of and maintaining a collaborative approach. So as part of this, as I mentioned, we prioritize the current and future initiatives. So what we're looking at is, how do we make this a sustainable process? So we're looking at the mayor having a workforce council, and this council will be the guiding force that will engage the community stakeholders so that a plan of action can be developed and can be maintained. But in order for us to engage and to understand what success looks like, it was key that we all look at and determine what are those key metrics that we will subscribe to so that we can drive performance to develop workforce development. Next slide, please. We looked at establishing a pathway to professions approach. And what the pathways to professional approach model is determining what are those career paths, what are those areas that we need to, I'm sorry, my power is going out, off is shaking a little bit, so forgive me if I go in and out a little bit. Looking at what are those career pathways models. So what are the pathways that an individual should take in order to partake in workforce development? We look at developing a comprehensive workforce guide as well as an asset map. Where are the jobs? Where are the workforce initiatives within the city of Tampa? And let's develop hubs in those particular areas to make it more convenient for those individuals who are unemployed or underemployed to assess and have access to those assets. And then we would use an iterative approach. We would measure and then we would correct. So understanding that this is a model, transformational model, we would look at what's working, what's not working, and we will pivot on a dime so that we can engage and develop, again, a sustainable approach. And by using the workforce development model, we would involve academia into the curriculum. That's going to be key. Academia in terms of which schools, the VOTEC schools or the community college have workforce initiatives, and then how can we leverage those resources? Next slide, please. On the next slide, the next slide. Okay, so in the next slide, we realized that in order for this to be effective, that we have to have proper outreach. So the advisory team looked at what are the options? How do we best communicate with the job seekers as well as those resources that are available with the programs and the tools? There were intensive discussions on not only touching the audience of the high school seniors, but how effective or much more effective can this program be if we delve down a level and started getting the middle schoolers engaged in workforce development. I think we all can agree that the reality is that every child or every young adult, high school senior, is not going to go to college. We all know that. Some of them don't even want to go to high school. But we need to make sure that they do have those career paths that will allow them to get those economic opportunities so that they can have the stability in our communities. Next slide, please. So at that, I would summarize that the workforce was very informative. It was very developed. We developed a lot of the actions that can be used that would help support affordable housing. But as I mentioned before, in order for this to be sustainable, we had to have all of the stakeholders at the table. And this is a direct tie-in with the housing and affordability. That's all I have for now. And if there are any questions, I would definitely entertain those.
Thank you, Osea. Workforce development, housing, transportation, they all do tie together. And one of the things that we know is that one solution doesn't fit all. At this time, I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. But also, if you have ideas, please share those with us. Some of them we may have heard before, but some of them we may not. Don't assume that we have, because we are looking for how do we make Tampa better. I am new to Tampa, but I love this place. I think it is a great place to call home. It is my home, and I want it to be the best city that it can possibly be. It's pretty much there, and it just needs a little love from all of us. So,
all right.
Ebony,
Yes,
start
ma'am.
with the question.
Yes, ma'am. So we do have a question here from Greg Mender. It says, has the City of Tampa targeted specific geographic areas for product and pricing needs?
So what we are looking at, we know that we need housing all over, but we are looking at where are the gaps, especially making sure that we have affordable housing near to where they work, so that people don't have to travel as far. We know that commutes, right now during COVID, the commutes are great, but once we all go back to work, they're not so great, and people are often traveling an hour or more. So we're really looking along employment corridors, transportation corridors, to expand affordable housing, and looking at where we don't have, because we feel everyone should have an opportunity to live in all parts of the city.
Our next question is from Sam Harris. Is the City of Tampa willing to revise the master plan for West Tampa from our team or for other developers?
I guess I need a little clarity on that question. There is a master plan that was done by the Housing Authority that they are implementing. And in addition, there was the Envision plan that was done by the city. So we're not really going back to the plan, we're now in the implementation phase. So we will be putting out an RFP for a request for proposals for the Rome Yard, which is in West Tampa. So Sam, if you could just provide a little more clarity as to what it is that you're asking.
Absolutely. I mean, if I may right now, I can.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in West Tampa, when you look at the current master plan, it is outdated. I know you're in the implementation phase, but the challenge that we have with the current plan, it doesn't handle transportation, doesn't handle the jobs of the future. It doesn't create the ability to create what we call innovation centers. So with the current building that's going on right now, these are not iconic developments. These are developments in 10 years is going to need to be repaired, or it's going to be ran down because it's just not done right. You know, when I look at developments for the future, I'm looking at things that are going to be there 50 years down the road. And currently the master plan that West Tampa has is more than 15 years old. So many things have changed in the last 5 to 10 years that the City of Tampa should look at what ways can we revise that plan, maybe bring in some new, fresh eyes to redevelop that space that's on the corner of Main Street and North Boulevard. Because the current plan is going to create an ecosystem to where you're going to push most of those residents that currently live in that area out. The tax base is going to go through the roof. And we need to create something with new ideas and the ability for people to live, work, play, educate. The current plan does not do that.
So as we are moving forward with the plan, we understand that things do evolve. So as we're putting out the RFPs, we are looking at those things. With the plan, the piece that we are really looking at, going back to that Envision plan, that I don't believe it's 15 years old because I've only been here 7 and they finished it when I got here. But it was about bringing the river into and utilizing that as an asset. So as we are looking at putting out RFPs and doing developments, we are looking at transportation issues. We are looking at mobility and different ways of getting around. You'll see that in the RFP. So I think it's really, and when we put out the RFP, we're looking for, and that would be your opportunity or others developers' opportunities, because we're not going to tell you what to build or how to build. You're going to tell us, what do you think you could do, and bring together a team that can do that. And that's how we'll be looking at that. So no plan is ever the end all be all. They all have to evolve and stay current.
All right, our next question is from Ron Weaver. How have lenders like Bank of America and others helped Habitat, and how can other banks help?
So I'm gonna let Tina, if she could answer that question.
Hi. So we partner a lot with banks. Larger banks like Bank of America, they usually engage with our organization through like their corporate grant program. So it's usually a sponsorship with volunteers. But other ways that we work with banks all the time are we do provide an affordable mortgage to our Habitat home buyers. And so we partner with banks because they need CRA credit. And then we can, the bank could potentially originate the loan, or we can sell them the loan. That makes it a bit easier on their end from an operational standpoint. Obviously, there's the volunteerism piece of that as well. But there are many ways you could partner with us. Even from a lending perspective, you know, if we need a line for a project or something of that nature, that's another way to get involved.
And executive training sharing.
Yes, absolutely.
Our next question is for Osea. How have COVID relief programs like the City of Tampa, One Relief, $100 million R3 COVID recovery plan, county dovetailed into your career path and plan resource enhancement?
Okay, so just so that, I just want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not sure if I did an adequate job with explaining what the pathways to professions is. But what that is that we're looking at those areas where the city can lead by example by focusing on trades or those other industries where we can develop the talent. And by using the construction as a template, the reason why we're focusing on construction is because we do have or will have the PIPES program that will be upcoming and ongoing for the next 20 years or so. So we need to develop the talent so that within that program, we can have the workers actually do the work. To answer the question, we won't have to go back and look at how all of this ties together with COVID. When the recommendations were submitted and the report was finalized, that was pre-COVID. So now we're having to take a step back to see what are those changes that we need to make. How do we need to make this a livable document for July 2020 and not December 2019? So, in which now we're in a different time, in a different environment. So to answer your question, we are evaluating and reevaluating that, and we'll have something more substantial to show and to report as we go and look at this, reevaluate it.
Osea, this next question is for you as well. How does one be considered for the task force by the mayor that Osea mentioned?
Okay, so the task force is, the advisory team is done. The task force, we are looking at members who will be, who are interested or who can provide value to it, to the task force. If you could just send me your information and your level of interest, or send it to Ebony, and then we'll reach out to you.
All right, at this time, it looks like we do not have any other questions in the comments section. We do have a lot of great comments, and we will read some of those at the end. Vanessa, we're ready to transition into our breakout collaboration rooms, but before we do, one thing that we do have is a video that we want you all to consider as you break out into your collaboration rooms. Now, these rooms are presented and you have presentations of certain topics that you all selected when you RSVP'd for this event. So because time is allotted very shortly, when your presenters are in the room, they're going to introduce themselves as well as the topic. And then you all, again, can have an open conversation. Things that we cannot finish discuss during the collaboration rooms, please be sure to send those things to me. My name is Ebony Clifton. That way I can make sure that I direct your questions and suggestions to the right party.
So I do think that the administrations are taking steps to, to move towards more affordable housing. There's, a significant need in the Hillsborough County area, City of Tampa, but the entire Hillsborough County area. What I would say is that I do realize that there is definitely a need for affordable rental housing. Not everybody wants to be a homeowner, not everybody needs to be a homeowner, but the thing about affordable housing that's magical is the fact that they're building wealth for their future, for the next generation. And so that's really what Habitat's about. It's about breaking the cycle of poverty for the generations to come. In circumstances where families get into a Habitat home, the savings that they have from rent now to ownership, they're not only building wealth, but they have a little bit of gap now. They have a little bit of ability to invest in themselves. And many times you'll see, children go to college, and that might be the first generation that goes to college. And seeing that and knowing that that was just the first step to them moving in that direction is very rewarding. I've met some of the children, that have grown up in a Habitat home and said, this changed our lives. And so it's incredible to be part of it. And without sponsors like ADG, we can't do this work. Without partnerships with the city and the county, we couldn't do this work. But there's a lot of good people behind the scenes.